Welcome to MarketPulse, Pros and Pioneers. Each week, we talk with industry leaders in both marketing and entrepreneurship and business to find out all about their wins and failures in marketing. Right now, we'll hear all about their successes and wins and what's fallen flat so that you can take that knowledge and implement it. Learn from the best, from the folks who've been there and done it all, as well as people just like you. Thanks for joining us. This is MarketPulse, Pros and Pioneers.
And welcome to this week's MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers, where I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Chris Reeve of Reeve Social Media. Hi, Chris.
I'm very good, thank you. I'm hyped to be in a digital space with the Javelin of Javelin content to talk shop on social media with you.
Genuine pleasure, mate. Genuine pleasure. I always, before we get into the episode, I always think it's funny. Like for those people who don't host their own podcast, there's this weird moment. We addressed it when I was on your podcast recently. Is you kind of go from that informal chat, and then silence for a little bit as you hit the record button, and then there's a burst of energy as you come on to the episode. And it's really weird being on this side of it, like when you're doing it, when you're the host and you're recording it all. I'm sure as the audience, you don't really hear any of that. You just hear the energetic episode. But it really is. It's a weird switch to flick for people who aren't used to it. I'd imagine as a first-time podcast, that's probably something that's really hard to get used to, right?
Yeah, no, it is. It is funny. Podcasting is a funny old game. There's so many positives, but there's so many things to factor in as well, which you don't realize until you actually get into that content creation mode, right? But that's all part of the learning process, isn't it? And that's why it's important to engage with someone like yourself, with another supplier that can really get you used to understanding how best to film and record your content, and also how best to start, that episode, the recording equipment, etc. It's I guess if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? Which is why not a lot of people do it. So I'm totally with you on that one.
As I'm pretty sure you're aware, most podcasts don't get past episode 10. So we're into this will be episode 16. So we're in golden territory. I've got to get past that 20 mark at the end of episode 20, and then I'm laughing. So yeah, to give to the audience, if you haven't met Chris before, if you don't know who he is, where have you been? Chris originally started social media as a bit of a side hustle. I'm sure a lot of people who are in this industry did exactly that too. He's moved up through the agency world. He's been in the social media industry for over a decade, and in 2020 hit the really impressive milestone of having managed more than 250 different social media accounts, including working with some high-profile celebrities along the way. Chris, what is it about social media that really gets you on your soapbox and creates that passion that I see week in and week out?
You make me feel a bit old actually listening to all of that, Paul. It's do you know what it is? Because of my story, the adversity of losing my mum when I was 14, I have this real desire and real acute awareness of time and how little we have of it. And I know this is quite a deep way to start a conversation on social media marketing, but essentially I see social media as a tool that can help anyone, anywhere, achieve their life dreams faster. And so that's my vision of my business, essentially, whether that be for an individual, whether that be for a business. We can do everything faster if we're truly effective and have a cohesive, engaging social media strategy. So yeah, that's I guess the why. And I just love the never-ending learning process of social. It's constantly changing and moving. Don't get me wrong, at times it's slightly embarrassing when I'm speaking to a client, showing them how to do something, and then the tool has changed, and I'm like, oh, this was okay last week, and now it's changed.
All the time.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I think that's the main reason, though. I love the connectivity of it. I love the fact that we all now have the ability to pick up our phone and truly truly tap into the 6 degrees of separation with anyone in the world. And it's just insanely powerful. And don't get me wrong, maybe it's something we discussed today. There's a lot of mindset stuff that goes on before we even go into that social media world. But that's essentially the reason why I have such a passion for social media and the ever-changing world of it.
But I think that's what makes the difference in people who are really successful in their field, is that they understand their why. And a lot of people, I get on my soapbox about this a lot, is a lot of people think that their why and what they do their job for is to pay the bills, and it's to look after their family, and it's to pay their mortgage, and have a nice car, or go on holiday, and you know, have that work-life balance. And that's all great, right? That is all great, but it's a symptom of what you do. It's a side effect of what you do, not your why. And if it is your why, you're probably going to burn out. You're not going to last a long time in the career that you're in, and you're going to find yourself really frustrated in the not too distant future. Folks like you, Chris, who've figured out what it is that they really enjoy about their job, and you can spend each day trying to do more of the things that really get you energized and really motivate you. And I guess, sounding from what you've said, is it's about helping people tell their stories. So with that in mind, 250 social media accounts throughout your career, and that was 2020, so it's 2024 now. We've kind of moved on from there, and no doubt you've managed a lot more since. What's the secret to managing a large amount of accounts all at once? Because I can imagine that there's a lot of personalities there, there's a lot of different tone of voice, there's a lot of different thoughts to go through. What's your secret for successfully doing that?
Oh, my word. Would you like this from a perspective of an agency owner or a business owner or a marketer, Paul? Because I think it's very different, right? I think I could go down the tools avenue here, and I will, but I think even way before that, it sounds quite starter pack advice, but if you're not looking after yourself, it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible, no matter what tools you've got, if you're managing multiple social accounts, because it is literally constant. It is, you need to make sure that your own mental health and well-being is in the right place, that your diet's in the right place, that you've invested in your eye care, that you have a good environment to work in. So you could start off with that. But I think to manage multiple, you have to be dedicated to the discipline of consistency and learning as you go and being okay with that. I'm a big believer in the fact that perfect social media post, it doesn't exist. And I think once you're over that mindset and you're into this space of execution over perfection and getting things live and learning on the go, that's the way that you can truly make progress. But in terms of the constant juggle, hands up, look, even for someone like myself that's been in the game for over a decade, it's so hard. And I'm so lucky to have a team around me now that help me create content, that help me schedule content, that do all of the boring admin stuff that I don't want to do, so I can do all of the fun podcasts and things like this. But if I didn't have that, it would be very difficult. So my heart goes out to all of the marketing managers that are perhaps listening to this now thinking, I can barely keep up with four platforms. And I don't blame them. I think it's also about, if you're working as I say, as a marketing manager inside a business, or you run an agency and you're running social for other people, it's so important that whoever is the point of contact, whoever is the decision maker, isn't constantly changing the goalposts. And I was speaking to someone about this on my podcast, Coffee with Chris, literally yesterday, actually. And we were talking about how you have to allow things some time to run. And because there's so many, and by so many, I mean hundreds of thousands of variables per platform, it's so difficult to make progress if the decision maker is constantly changing things. So having a really, really good, respectful, trusting relationship between that person that runs the business and the agency owner or the marketeer or the marketing manager is important. You need to be aligned. You need to be on the same hymn sheet. And you need to be patient, as I say, and just allow things time to run, because it is constantly changing in terms of just the economy, the platforms, the algorithm, your content, your available creative, when you post it, how you post it, why you post it. So there's a ton of stuff there. That's just the start.
That's just the starting point of it all. And yeah, to your point around technology, right? Like I always say, managing any sort of service around digital content for people is super valuable, because it takes away their necessity of managing that technology. And the technology, the platforms change. So, you know, a new third-party tool might come through that makes life incredibly simple and replaces 2 or 3 other tools. The tools themselves are always iterating on new features. You've got AI coming in now, and there's the whole question of should we or shouldn't we, and how much and when and where. And it just, for me, like if I put my business owner hat on, I started business to do this one thing over here, and now all of a sudden I've got to do social media this and social media that, create a video over here, and I'm talking on this podcast, I'm doing all that. And before I know it, I'm spending 80% of my time doing all this bloody social media stuff, which I know is necessary. I know I need to get it done. But Christ, I need to find time to do my accounting and my bookkeeping and manage my diary. It's an impossible juggling act. So I do think the technology aspect of that is critical for business owners, just to kind of, you know, when you're at that point, just to get it off your plate, because it's so hard.
I think, Paul, I want to interject there. In our podcast that we did together on my business page, one of the things that I'm a huge fan of is that content pyramid and being really clever with your content as well. So many people are choosing to do things the hard way, and therefore are losing so much valuable time in whichever role they're doing on social. They don't realize that by prioritizing video, by filming a piece of content for an hour, that could save them a month, 2 months worth of content creation time, right? So I also think, you know, for anyone that's watching this, that's perhaps listening to this back, is again also really important to try to actually get smarter with your content as well, and not overthinking it. I think people often make the mistake of treating social media perhaps like email marketing, perhaps almost like a newspaper, perhaps like a TV ad, where they almost feel like it can only be shown once and then it can never be used again. And that they just assume that everyone sees everything every time. But the way that these platforms work now is of, say, for example, you had 1,000 Facebook followers. Well, at the moment, maybe only 100 people are gonna see any given post at any given time, if that's organically, unless you put paid promotion behind it, of course, as well. So I think it's just, again, be brave with it, be clever with it as well. And that's why I'm a huge advocate, Paul, of your YouTube playlist methodology. I think that's absolute gold, and I would encourage anyone to really delve into your learnings on that, and try to follow that as a blueprint to start off with, at least.
It's very kind, Chris, and yeah, like I've built that out from the perspective as a business owner, because I struggle with strategy, like I know a lot of the audience do. I'm not a strategist, I'm not, but in reflection of that, like your own tagline of keeping social media simple, keeping social simple, I think that is brilliant, because that's how it should be. There's a lot of variables out there. You can easily get lost in the world of things, in amongst the trees. But actually, if you approach it simply, then you can measure that success and do well, even just with organic, right?
Absolutely. And even just on that topic of, you know, keeping it simple, really, really seriously think about that, because people are overthinking it. They're pondering and wandering and whying all over the place. They are making decisions based on the boardroom and not what the boardroom is saying and not what the audience is saying.
Yeah.
And they're not treating each platform natively as well. And they're not aware of time. People do not have the time to read a huge long form post on social media. That's why you need to keep it short, snappy, and simple. And of course, there's a place for thought leadership content. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying seriously think about simplifying things, make it easy for people to understand things, create infographics, create visual value, something that demonstrates your client journey, because the human brain processes images 60,000 times faster than words. And again, you could probably times that by 10 or 25 with regards to your world of video, Paul. So I think it's important to think about that. The other thing as well, in terms of keeping it simple, is, also how you write your content. So many people are doing loads of fancy pants stuff down the bottom end of their content, and no one's reading it. And no one's reading it because they're not grabbing attention. So the three filters I always encourage people to think about when they're writing content is attention, engage, and value. So grab attention, because without that, no one's going to bother to read anything. Engage, meaning ask a question. How dare you say, oh, why is my content not getting any engagement? Well, it's because you're not bothering to engage with your audience. You can ask them a question.
Yeah.
And then value is the last one. You give them value. You don't have to drive them down a lead funnel or a click funnel, or give them the value, and use social media as it is meant for, which is a tool to speed up the process between prospect and customer. And that's what I mean by making social simple. I mean it in so many regards. If you have that mindset, you'll be so much more successful.
I wonder then, Chris, like just to take a little bit more out of that, what you've just said, is it a British thing that we don't like writing that hook line at the top and grabbing that attention? Is that a traditional British thing, or is that pervade the world over?
No, I think that's a fair assessment. I definitely think it's a fair assessment. I think for the Brits that are watching this, that are tuning into this, own the fact that you need to get a little bit more American with it, right? And again, I was recently having a conversation with a client of mine, and also another trusted partner as well. And we were saying this exact same thing. I mean, Gary Vee's famous phrase is jab, jab, right hook, right? And actually, at some stage, you need to give them a right hook. And I see a lot of people on social media, they're dancing around the outside all the time. They're like, oh, I can't quite tell them to do something yet, or I can't tell them to contact me yet, or da-da-da. If you don't tell someone to do something on social media, they are not going to do it. They are not going to do it. And so I would absolutely encourage people to be a bit braver with it. And I'm not saying be salesy, and I know that people get the ick with that word, but I think you should be proud of the fact that you're trying to help people through your content, and therefore you have to tell them to do something eventually. But that attention point is so valuable. It's something that I really been very lucky enough to work with many publications over my career. And the thing that I've really taken away from traditional press is that big headline. Think about your headline with all of your copy, because without it, no one's going to even scroll further down. The great thing about this, specifically on LinkedIn as well, sorry to quickly geek you on this, is that if you use a headline, there's actually a hidden metric behind LinkedIn as we're recording today, which is that if someone presses that see more button, that will actually keep your post higher up the feed as well. LinkedIn, they register that see more click, and they go, oh, okay. So people must be interested in learning more and reading more, and therefore your post performs much better. So that is exactly why you should keep things simple and focus on attention over everything else.
And I'd throw another bonus in there as well. If we're gonna geek out about LinkedIn, we might as well do it properly, right? Do the same thing with your about section in your profile on your LinkedIn, right? Mm-hmm. What you get a limited space at the top, and that's all most people ever read, because there's no reason for them to click that see more button. So you can be really creative with how you do it, but get them to click that see more button even on your profile, so that the rest drops down. And if you're telling a congruent story and a really interesting narrative on the rest of it, people are going to fall in love with what they see. And that's what differentiates you from anyone else that's out there. I love this, Chris. Question that I kind of thought of whilst we were preparing for the show is, you explicitly state that you're organic only. You don't do the paid side of social media. Why is that? Why was that a conscious choice to stay away from the paid side of things? And I've got my own suspicions. I've got a bit of an insider view, but in your own words.
Well, honestly, I don't have the skill to do so. That's the very simple answer. But the other answer is, I believe that by specializing in something and niching in something, we can provide a much deeper amount of value for a client. I've also worked agency side myself and been in situations where the answer has been yes to everything, and then actually they're only really good at one thing and not another's. I've seen so many businesses being burnt by agencies that say that they do everything. They don't do everything. They don't do everything. They do one or two things exceptionally well, don't get me wrong. but the 3 or 4 other things they just do because they're easy to sell.
Yeah.
So I really, really wanted to essentially try to combat against that stigma and really specialize in organic. And to be brutally honest, to wave a book on screen, I'll say this: I'm really, really, really good at it. I'm really good at it, and I don't know why I would say yes to a service that I'm not good at. And I know loads of trusted partners that I work with on multiple accounts that can geek you until the cows come home with regards to paid social. So that's the why.
I think it's fascinating because from a business owner's perspective, probably most people just assume that if you're a social media company, you could do both, right? Like it doesn't seem from that end user perspective that there's a lot of difference between the two. Well, social media is social media, and all we're doing is put some adverts behind it. But the truth is, it's like building a website and being an SEO expert. Again, it's something that a lot of end users don't really see the difference between. Different types of marketing agency, different types of consultants, different types of coaches, different, LinkedIn profile writers. There are different types of LinkedIn profile writers. Yes, there are. People specialize, and you should specialize. Don't worry about saying no to some people to align better with others.
Absolutely. And I'm a big believer in maybe perhaps a cliche saying is I'm a big believer in landing and expanding with clients. So what I mean by that is I really, really believe that a business with a consistent, effective, platform bespoke strategy can move the needle through just organic social. Of course, if they want to reach their goals and objectives faster and they want that hockey stick graph, of course, that definitely engage with paid social. But I believe there's so many people out there, Paul, that actually with an effective organic social strategy, they can achieve all of their goals and objectives. Don't get me wrong, it takes longer to get there. Of course it does. And I'm certainly not saying don't engage with paid social. Absolutely engage with it, but work with the right supplier and make sure that they are working in tandem with the same hymn sheet of your organic supplier. And then it can be insanely effective. But I've got a passion for helping small businesses as well as and of course, working with medium and large. But I think so many small businesses think that having a marketing agency help them is completely unattainable, and it's not. They can make so much progress through just one area. And it's the same with your services and offering, right? If they truly jumped into the deep end of video content creation, they could make so much progress without organic social, without design, there's so many things. So yeah. I think it's always important to be honest about that, and that's the reason
Don't
why.
try and do everything, but do a few things very, very well, and that's whether you're a service provider or whether you're the end user. Like just hone down on what it is that you want to do.
Yes.
A couple of questions that I ask every guest that comes on the show, Chris. So I'm gonna come back to the core of the show now, which is, what's one thing that you wish businesses would stop doing around marketing? What really gets you on your soapbox?
Whoa, blimey.
Just one.
How long am I scrolling for on this one? Cool, blimey. Okay, from a social media perspective, let me start my long ramble on this. One of the main things is treating every platform the same and just splurging things out and committing the cardinal sin of linking social media accounts because they're too lazy to post natively to both. So you'll see it all the time, that this was posted on Instagram or posted by Instagram and they've linked it. And it's okay with Facebook and Instagram, but of course Meta is the group business, and so it doesn't penalize you too much. Never, ever, 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 ever link your social media accounts. That is just a big no-go. And the other thing that breaks my heart is one of the most important, powerful, really valuable metrics for success on social is creating conversations. It's literally in the name, social media. So if we post something, and I see it all the time, businesses are posting content and they get responses and they don't respond to them. And I'm just like, this is actually now more damaging to your brand. And I see it all the time. And look, that's just a couple of things. But I think for me, not bothering to treat each platform as its own, native entity, I think is probably the main takeaway. How many times, and I'm sure you get frustrated over this. How many times do you see, for example, people use landscape videos on every single platform, I knew I'd get you, regardless of how
Stop
best they
it.
perform. So, for example, they'll post landscape videos on TikTok. They'll use the exact same editing tools for a TikTok video, and they'll then throw it out on Instagram, not realizing that they're getting punished because Instagram can detect when you've used a TikTok tool to create your video. Could go on forever. There's so many frustrating things. And I don't think it takes a lot. The truth is, I don't think it takes a lot for someone to just learn a little bit about social media to understand how to make a lot of progress faster, even regardless of whether they engage with a marketing agency or not. And so those are just a few
There's a
things.
starting point there for people though when you're just starting to get involved in some of the other platforms, and I've done this in the past, and I'm still on that path, I'm still on that progress of. I'm not an expert on all the different social media. I'm not you, Chris. I'm figuring it all out as I go. And so at the moment, hands on heart, I am doing exactly what you said. TikTok video, export it from CapCut, put it into Instagram, but also TikTok's my focus right now, not Instagram. I'm not active on Instagram. I haven't gotten there with it yet. I want to have a presence there so that when I do turn it on, it's there. But hands on heart, I didn't even realize that until today. I knew that you can't create things in standard video editors and put that straight on TikTok because they like you to use their platform. And there are all these unique little things about each one. But if you spend enough time around the platforms, just pick one platform at a time to move yourself up the thing. Before you dive into your next rant, though, I'm gonna nail your last point. TED conferences. I'm calling you out. TED conferences. Yesterday, posting an amazing post. We're having an easy day at the office. We want to help you find the videos that motivate you. What are the topics you want to learn more about? And we're gonna send you a link for your TED conference, right? Hands on heart, I poked a bit of humour at them and I said, why is it that my nan loves stuffing her handbag full of used toffees, remote controls, and dirty hankies and cutlery? Why is that? And yeah, that was a bit tongue in cheek, right? But then I started to get the notifications when everybody else posted up. They answered one person and then walked away from that keyboard. There were 40 people as of last night that still hadn't had a response from TED conferences. If you're not going to do it, don't offer it. Don't do it. So yeah, that burned me massively on that one. I have a pretty high opinion of TED conferences till yesterday. Your marketing team's shocking. Get Chris involved.
Look, as I say, I think if you're not responding to comments, it's a massive, massive own goal. And it's so important is what people don't realize that by taking an extra literally 30 seconds to 1 minute, especially if you're a brand in the B2C space and responding even with a tiny emoji, that could be the difference.
Yeah.
For a customer continuing to use you, and they go from just customers to ambassadors by just responding to them on social media. It's insanely effective, and I'd encourage more people to do that. I was just going to say, you opened me up actually on a train of thought there, actually, Paul, which is the other thing that really frustrates me, that gets me on my soapbox with businesses, is they spread themselves too thin when they're first starting out. The amount of conversation I have with business owners where they fall over because they're trying to do so much, and lo and behold, it costs more, both in terms of resource and time, to make it happen, and they don't have the skill necessary for each platform. So one of the first things that I do with our clients, say, like, where are you doing business at the moment? Where are people talking to you? LinkedIn? Okay, let's start there. Let's get an effective social media strategy for your LinkedIn page only nailed. Then we can mess around with TikTok later on. And again, leading on from that, the other thing that really frustrates me and it really breaks my heart is people fall for the vanity metrics. Are your audience hanging out on TikTok? They might be. And I'm certainly not a TikTok naysayer, but the thing with TikTok at the moment is the organic reach is insane. It's incredible, meaning you will get views. And when you start out, lo and behold, one of your first 4 videos will probably go semi-viral, as long as it's relatively decent, because they hook you on that casino UX style machine that makes you think, oh, this must be good. And I spoke to someone about this the other day. Go, yeah, we're really good on TikTok, Chris. I said, oh, that's good. Talk to me about that. And I said, yeah, we get thousands of views month on month. It's incredible. I said, that is amazing. What's been the impact to your bottom line then? And then there was a tumbleweed moment, and they couldn't tell me a single bit of business they got through posting on TikTok. And so I hope that all links back into one of really think about where your short-term wins can be. You know, where's the lowest hanging fruit? Start there. Please don't spread yourself too thin.
Well, I think you've actually covered the next point that I generally make to all our guests, which is what's one thing you wish people would start doing, and
Okay.
I guess that nicely covers that off as well. So, Chris, as we keep saying, we could probably chat and geek out and nerd on this for the next 3-4 hours. I'm not sure our audience have that much time to listen. If they want to reach out and have a chat about keeping social media simple, how do they reach you, Chris?
LinkedIn is my favorite platform. I'm Chris Reeve, is in Superman's name on LinkedIn. If you want to go to my website, it's www.reevesocialmedia.co.uk. But I'm on every social, as you can imagine, as @Reeve Social. So go and check me out, message me, and I'm happy to help anyone with anything regarding social anytime. Please don't waste money. Please don't waste time. And please don't fall into any traps, which so many business owners have fallen into before. Reach out to me anytime. Much to my wife's dismay, I'm available at all hours. So if you want I'm not sure I should have, hopefully she doesn't watch this one. So please do message me anytime. I'm happy to help.
I'll edit that out. It's all good. Like, Chris, very rarely do we have a guest with the amount of passion and energy that you bring to the table, and I can only imagine that you share that with your audience also. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We must have you back at some point in the not too distant future. Thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. And thank you, listeners, watchers, everybody who comes along every week and makes MarketPulse a success. If you have any thoughts, if you've got any ideas for guests, if you've got any topics you'd like us to cover, feel free, reach out, drop me an email, paul@javelincontent.com. My contact details are in the show notes. I would love to chat with anybody who's got an inspiration for the show. This is your show as much as it is mine. Thank you. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. The contact details are in the show notes. We'd love to hear from you. Your host today was Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Javelin specializes in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away, and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximize your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next week for the next episode, and don't forget to give us a subscribe and a review. Our podcast is only possible with your support.